Hi friends, and welcome. We're headed south again this week. If you're not a frequent flyer, if you didn't catch last week's program, we started this trip with my bride, Miss T, taking a tremendous Sika buck down at the Rio Bonito Ranch just outside of Junction, Texas. And this place is an absolute paradise if you're a hunter. With over 25 square miles of open range hunting and every kind of exotic you can think of, and white-tailed deer and Rio Grande turkeys and wild hogs to hunt, you can even bass fish there. This place is amazing. Well, Tina got her Sika, like I said. Our good friend and guide Dan Fox even got his Christmas pig. So now, finally, it's my turn. And I'm going to take my stick and string and I'm going to go out and try and get me a mature whitetail. Now, I got to tell you, I'm a little concerned. The rut is much farther along than I thought it would be, and the bucks are chasing. And if you know anything about bow hunting, trying to get a mature white-tailed deer to stand still in the middle of the rut can be a tough task. Hey, I'm your host, Kyle Randall. This is my Wilderness Journal, and we're headed for the heart of Texas Hill Country right now.
That first afternoon, we went out to a stand where Dan said he'd been seeing some white-tail bucks, and before long, we saw one. Sort of. This little spike worked his way across the sendero, followed by what appeared to be another small buck, only the second buck wouldn't come out in the open, and after a few moments, a doe actually popped out and went to him. And unfortunately, that's pretty much all I saw until just before dark. That second buck, followed by what I'm sure is the same doe, came working their way back across the sendero, and following them was a dandy all-white fallow buck. This, friends, is definitely a shooter. A mature animal, a really nice rack, and he was all white. I'd only been in the field hunting for myself a couple of hours, and I was faced with my first decision. Yeah, I passed.
That big white fallow was definitely tempting, but I'd promised myself I was going to hold my arrow for a mature whitetail at least for the first couple days of my hunt, so we decided to move stands, and we no more than got settled in the next one, and
a doe popped out into the opening off to my left, and following her was a dandy buck. I could hear him chasing, crashing around in the brush behind me, but neither of them ever came out into the sendero. And then about a half hour later, I caught a little movement. Here was a really nice Sika buck working his way down through the brush off to my left as well. Every once in a while he'd stop and sniff the ground and then keep right on marching again. It was obvious both of these bucks were looking for love. Unfortunately, they weren't looking for it out in front of me. This was definitely a shooter, but he never got close enough for me to even pick up my bow. And then, just as it got dark, another deer, a doe, slowly worked her way, this time out in front of us, out into the sendero. I thought, man, if there's a buck following her, we're in business. She came working her way across, more or less right at us. In fact, she made a kind of a right turn and was walking right straight into my face. I was scared to move, scared to even look. Finally, she got past me. I heard a little bit of a noise, a rock clicking, and she was coming back. This crazy deer was within 15 feet. She'd heard or seen something. She wasn't spooked, but she knew something wasn't right. And then she just finally moved off back across the sendero. I never did see a buck following her, and I guess in a way it's a good thing, because had there been one, there's no way I'd have ever got a shot off.
That 10-point was definitely a shooter, and for that matter, so was that Sika buck. I couldn't even slow them down, though. They barely paused despite my grunting. It was definitely going to be tough harvesting a mature buck with archery gear. I did decide the next day, you know what, I'm going to change up a little bit. I'm going to go down by the river where Dan had been seeing some turkeys. Maybe I could break the ice, so to speak, with a big old Rio Tom. And in this place, you never know what's going to walk by. I might see a great deer there.
It was kind of windy that morning, so we got down right by the river bank and started calling there. And before long we could hear and then see some real grand turkeys working their way down toward us on the other side of the river. We watched as the birds stopped and got a drink, and then some of them actually flew over to our side. I thought, man, we're going to have this done and be back in time for breakfast. I sat there calling softly. The birds could obviously hear me, only they were starting to split up. Some of them continued on across the river to our side, but some of them made a turn and started working down the far bank. And in a way that was okay. I really didn't need that many sets of eyes when I tried to draw my bow. What I did need was a decent tom to step out in front of us, to come to our side so I could get a shot. So far, all I'd seen was hens on our side of the river. We sat motionless as a group of 20 or more hens and young worked their way past us at less than 15 feet. But I never did see a tom in this part of the group. It's legal to shoot hens there in the fall, just like up here in Michigan. But for now, at least, I'd wait.
I managed to call in a mess of turkeys, but unfortunately, none of the toms crossed to my side of the river. Still, it was a great morning, and I decided that afternoon I was going to head out a little early. I'd do some more turkey calling for a while in the midday, and then, if that didn't work, I'd get quiet for a bit, maybe do a little grunting and wait for the bigger critters to start moving toward evening.
Just after 2 that afternoon, I was doing a little calling on the edge of a dry wash, and I was pretty sure I could hear at least one bird talking back. And then, out of the corner of my eye, coming from behind us, I could see at first one and then a small group of hens. They passed by at 15 yards, that is all except for one. One decided to walk up and, roost on my knee, I guess. She walked up to within 6 or 8 feet max. I could have reached out with the arrow and poked her. She did finally decide something wasn't just right and turned and went back to the group. But I gotta tell you, friends, that's my definition of bow hunting. Getting critters right up in your grill like that, it is so exciting. And it really didn't matter to me. There was no tom in this group. Getting that close is always a kick. The next few hours passed uneventfully until just as the sun was setting, I caught a little movement. And there was a buck chasing a doe. They were working their way out into the sendero, and this, friends, was definitely a shooter. I grunted at the buck, and he stopped and stood there twitching and flicking his tail at me. This was classic rut. I couldn't get him to come, though, and then when the doe started to leave, he started to leave with her. I grunted a couple more times, and he actually turned around and came back. This is what tension feels like, friends. I needed this buck to close the distance. And then I noticed another doe working her way out. He turned and started heading in her direction. I grunted one more time, but it didn't seem to make any difference. And then something spooked him. I don't know what it was. They just blew out of there. I caught a little more movement. I looked to my right, and here come a little forked horn buck right across in front of us. I couldn't believe this little buck spooked that big boy, but something had sent him running out of here. I sat motionless as that forked horn passed by, and then I saw the big boy following the same trail. That's the rut, folks. You just never know. The deer hadn't been gone 15 seconds when I heard a tom turkey gobble out behind me, and then I could see him coming. Not one, but 2 or 3 dandy big old toms were working their way in. They were coming right up the sendero, right in my face. If they kept coming, I was going to have to decide, should I shoot one of these toms and risk spooking that big old buck? I knew he was running around here tending a doe somewhere. I reached over, picked up my bow, and got ready. These were some serious ropers, a couple of really big Rio Grande turkeys, something you don't get a shot at every day. It was decision time in Texas. At less than 15 yards, this was pretty much a pot shot. And I passed. I really didn't want to risk spooking that buck out of this area, and I really hoped I didn't regret it come tomorrow.
A great buck and a couple of dandy toms, and I didn't get a shot at any of them. It's just one of those things. I certainly could have shot at one of those toms, but I didn't want to do anything to spook that buck out of that area. This, for me at least, was one of the rare times when a bird in the hand really wasn't worth more than a buck in the bush.
First light the next morning found me staring at what looked like a pretty nice buck right back in that same stand. He was working his way in head on, was behind some brush, but he was at least an 8-point, appeared to be at least a 3-year-old. He wasn't quite as good as the other buck I'd seen here the day before chasing the does. Still, I'd be hard-pressed to pass him if he got himself out in front of me. And then, just as he was easing out from behind the brush and I thought I was actually going to get a shot, he threw his head up and then started backing up. He was looking across in front of me, not right at us. I looked over real slow, and pigs. A whole bunch of little pigs, a sow and a boar were coming in, and that's all it took. The deer were going out.
That was the second time I'd seen a really nice buck in that area, but between the rut and the pigs, just as I feared, getting an archery shot at a mature buck was proven to be pretty tough. I decided to change things up a little bit. Friends, when the going gets tough, the tough go fishing.
Yes, fishing. The Rio Bonito has its own private lake, and it's a great way to spend the middle of the day.
Pretty little spot on it. Even pretty if you'd catch fish.
Trying.
Tell the fish, right?
Yeah.
Bit of a channel through there. Wind's coming up a little bit. There's buzzards. Where else you going bass fishing? There's buzzards in the tree. There's one right there. Well, maybe. Are you done? No. Are you just? Yeah, you're just playing possum. Come here, you. Oh. Go deer hunting with a bow or a rifle. Exotic hunting. Hogs. Wild turkey. And do a little bass fishing in the afternoon. You know, just so you don't get bored. Isn't that awesome? And in an awesome place. Look at this place. This place is gorgeous. And the fish are biting. That's the second one already. We'll put him back. So he's here when the next people come here. Thanks, buddy. Where else are you going to go and hunt deer and exotics and wild hogs and turkeys all at the same time? The Rio Bonito Ranch. I tell you, Glenn and Peter and even Dan, everybody down here's got it going on. This is incredible. This is not just a hunt trip. This is a vacation. 130-year-old hacienda. It's incredible. And the fishing's good.
We caught a couple of nice fish and really enjoyed a peaceful afternoon out there on the lake. It was one of those things we were having so much fun it was almost a shame to pack it in and head back out hunting.
Still, man's got to do what a man's got to do, right? Tough job, broad shoulders and all. Yeah, we got back to hunting. There was a stiff south breeze, so we changed stands. And not 20 minutes after getting set up, we had a group of Sika deer working their way in. And when I say working their way in, I mean right up in front of us, less than 15 yards. Those Sika worked up so close I could smell them. And then, for some reason, they started staring, and then they turned and just left. I started looking around real slow. I couldn't figure out. It was aoudad. A whole group of aoudad were moving in. And in that group was one dandy ram. And I mean heavy and wide, a nice long sweeping curl. This was definitely a shooter. And I was definitely faced with another decision. We only had a couple of days left in the trip. It's a rare day you ever get a look at an aoudad this nice, let alone within bow range. I slowly turned with my bow and it spooked him a little bit, but he just stood there broadside, tempting me. And then I passed him too. I just had my heart set on taking a run at a whitetail, but I gotta admit, I was beginning to wonder about some of my decisions and how bad I'd regret them if I went home empty-handed.
Passing on that aoudad ram was tough, but I truly wanted to take a crack at one of the mature whitetails they have down there at the Rio. I did decide I'd shift gears a little bit. We only had a day and a half left, so I decided I'm going to put down the stick pusher, pick up Dan's rifle, and head back into the area where we'd seen those 2 great 8-points. Maybe, just maybe, I'd get one more look.
We sat in the blind in the gathering light, and so far all we could see was a small hog and a couple of cyca. Dan and I watched as a few more hogs started working their way in. And then I caught a little movement back in the brush. Here was a dandy buck working a doe. He had his neck stretched out. You could tell he was trailing. I could hear him grunting. And then he turned. He was coming right straight in. This was the exact same buck that we'd seen the second day we were bow hunting. The one with the tip-back brow tine, only this time I got the rifle out just as he made his turn and started trailing back out again.
Is that not the loudest bow you ever heard? You need some string silencers, buddy. This bow of yours is loud. Holy smokes. I've shot some loud stuff. No, that was beautiful. Thanks, buddy. Nice buck.
We got him.
Nice Texas Hill Country. That's a big old mature, heavy antlered 8-point. You know what? The rut is a great thing, but it's tough on a bow hunter. We could not get one of them things to stand still long enough to hunt with a bow. So we borrowed a shooter, and did I mention we're having a good time?
We got her done.
Thank you. And certainly Glenn and Peter, everybody, we are doing just some real work. And this is so much fun. If you want to extend your hunting season, if you want to come down here and see tons of game, this is almost like hunting in a zoo. You never know what you're going to see. You know, we sat last night, and a big old aoudad ram comes walking right up at 20 yards. Tina's out here. She's thinking, well, I'm going to hunt for an axis, one of them big 200-pound spotted fawns. So what walks up? A 4x4 cyca. And you know, Tina is like, oh, I'll shoot that. The Rio Bonito Ranch, what a wonderful place to come in. And you can hunt here all year round. You see all the exotics. You can hunt them all year. You can hunt turkeys. You can hunt hogs. You can just hunt yourself near to a tizzy.
It's hog time now.
Well, I think we ought to go find that deer, don't you?
Well, as soon as we do that, then we're going to hog hunting.
If you don't mind. If it's okay with you.
Okay.
Now that's right there. Look at the size of that rub right there, man. Look at that thing. And look at this buck. Well, he ain't just taking a nap, I'm pretty sure, Captain. Yeah, buddy. Here, let me take care of this. I'll hand you that, being it's yours. Thank you. Thank you for loaning the gun and for the grain hunt. Look, I say, look at that buck. Now get on there and have a look. That's what Texas Hill Country stuff.
The curl in his brow tine.
I told you there was 2 nice 8-points we'd seen when Tina was hunting, and the one had a tip-back brow tine I thought was just a little better, a little longer tines, and I'd say that's him. Wouldn't you?
It's a great buck.
We come
Great
down
shot.
here.
Great shot. Put
Not-
it right where it should be.
Not too bad for an old guy. I don't shoot them loud bows very often. I usually throw sticks at them, but these things are rutting. It's first full week of December.
Yep.
And we just couldn't get them stand still for an arrow. So fortunately, in Texas, this time of year, you can choose. You can hunt with a bow or the gun or both. We're not done yet. We're going to chase some hogs and turkeys. Tina's already got a dandy Sika buck, a 4x4, and now one of them. That, my friends, is why you come to Texas. You get a hold of Gwen, and she will set you up on a hunt where you can just hunt and hunt and hunt. I mean, this is so cool. You might even look out and get old Captain Dan for a guide. Thanks again, buddy. This is absolutely, this is a banger. Friends, if it looked to you like we were having a great time seeing all those different kind of animals and doing all that different kind of hunting and fishing in one tremendous place, that's because we were. This is awesome. That hunt was far more than a hunt. It was a vacation. I mean, the diversity of game, the people, the place, everything about it was first class and over the top, and we had such a good time. I certainly want to thank and congratulate again my bride, Miss T, on taking that tremendous Sika buck. And for that matter, our good friend and guide, Captain Dan, on collecting his Christmas pig and enjoying me and having such a good time out in the field. Hey, if this is something that appeals to you, you get a hold of Gwen and Peter. All the folks down there at the Rio Bonito are going to do everything in their power to show you exactly what we saw. You can go and enjoy all those opportunities and in a great time of the year. Actually, you can go all year long. You can hunt exotics there 364 days. Hey, I hope we see you down there. I hope you're out in the field dragging in a big old good one of your own, and if you are, well, you know we're going to stop, help you load it up, and then follow you in so you can honk your way up to the front door. And after that, we'll certainly stop and share that cup and a fire. And friends, if we don't see you down there, well, then I truly hope to see each and every one of you right back here when we'll share another adventure from my Wilderness Journal.
Thanks again, Gwen and Peter and Dan, everybody at the Rio Bonito, for a tremendous time.